The mothership has landed. Hi, welcome back aboard the Earthmote. I'm Randall. Today we're going to be taking a look at Mothership, the sci-fi horror RPG by Tuesday Night Games. There's this beautiful box set we're going to do a quick overview of what's inside and a quick overview of the rules to see if you might be interested in playing it. All right, here we have the Mothership Deluxe box set. It's by Tuesday Night Games. It has this beautiful cover, artwork depicted with this kind of gold foil wrapping around it. And on the back side, we can see Deluxe set, and then it includes the survival guide, the Warden's operation manual, the Shipbreaker's toolkit, Unconfirmed contact reports, and then 4 modules. All right, I've taken the cover off. It's a little bit of a struggle. But you can see on the inside the artwork and then survive, solve, save. I've read through the books. I believe this is their philosophy that you can achieve 1 or maybe 2 of these goals when you are playing through the modules. You can survive the incident. You might be able to solve the mystery, or you might be able to save the people that are trapped or whatever, but you're unlikely to achieve all 3. So that's kind of what happens in a horror game. This, I believe, is the Warden's screen. So I'll open that up so you can see the different information there. Very nice. And then the artwork is kind of this alien-esque cover on it. So very cool. I believe this is a giant map, perhaps. Includes some cardboard punch outs of figures and some tokens there. And then we have the box itself. So this has sort of 3 compartments in the deluxe one. We have all the modules, booklets and modules here. We'll go through those in a second. And then you have these containment areas, I guess. So this one is empty. You can put whatever you want in there. Maybe those cardboard punch outs if you put that out, maybe dice, things like that. And then over here you have more storage. So these are the base stands for those cardboard punch outs, and it comes with a few dice. So if you've never played Mothership is a D100 based game, so you use the percentile die a lot. And I don't exactly remember what the D20 is for, but it might be used for a couple rolls as well. So very nice. These are magnetic enclosure, so they kind of stay sealed. Very cool. All right, and then we have a whole stack of zines or booklets that come in the actual deluxe set. So Player's Survival Guide, Warden's Operation Manual, Shipbreaker's Toolkit, Unconfirmed Contact Reports, and then the modules, another Bug Hunt, Dead Planet, A Pound of Flesh, and Gradient Descent. We'll look through these very briefly. I'm not going to go through the modules today. There are other reviews online if you want to take a look at those. If someone's interested and would like me to review the modules, leave a comment down below, and I can maybe take a look through those. Just a warning before we dive into these booklets, this is a horror game, and as a result, some of the artwork is depicting a bit more grotesque or horror-esque scenes. There's some gore, general nastiness. So I just wanted to give that content warning ahead of time before we dive into it. So you consider yourself warned. So here we have the Player's Survival Guide, the game was created by Sean McCoy. We have weapons and damage on the inside there. Nice quick reference. We go straight into character creation. I got a chance to read through the PDFs over the summer when they were distributed to backers early. Very impressed. Really nice layout. Super clear. They do a really good job of teaching the game. In the different books, there's lots of good instructions on how the game is played or play examples on how the game is played. They do a really fantastic job. Quick loadouts. So if you're just generating one of these different classes quickly, you can select those gear kits. So there's 4 main classes, if you want to call it that, in the game. So Marines are kind of combat specialists. Scientists are more focused on skills and the science aspect of deep space. Teamsters are kind of your all-around skilled characters. They're kind of good. They're decent at everything. And androids are a little bit maybe better at computer skills. They don't get as freaked out as some of the other characters. Firearms, armor. Here's information on how to be a great player. That's super useful. Dice notation. So it's essentially a roll under system. Your character has 4 main stats: strength, speed, intellect, and combat. And anytime you're doing something, you're trying to roll under those numbers on a D100. If you're doing a skill check, it'll be generally associated with a stat plus your skill bonus. So that'll give you a little bit higher chance to roll under it. But, it is kind of a game where it's difficult to succeed. Your numbers are pretty low, and death and dismemberment and all that is pretty common. This is a horror game, so just be aware of that. You have health and wounds. So health is the number of damage you can take, and then once you hit that maximum number, you take a wound, and then your health resets. And then once you hit your maximum number of wounds, you die. So I think most characters start with 2 wounds. Androids maybe get 1 extra. So you have your stats and your saves, and each time you fail a stat check or a saving throw, you gain stress, and your maximum number of stress you can have is 20. And at different times, you'll be called to make a panic check. And what you need to do is, that's where the D20 comes in. You need to roll greater than your current stress. So if you fail that, then you panic, and there's a panic table that you roll on, and generally bad things happen. Talks about stat checks, saves, modifying them. As I said, here's different little examples that they include. Really nice. How you gain stress, how you relieve stress, what are the panic checks. Here's the panic table. You can have a heart attack, or all sorts of different things can happen to you. Skills, skill training, turn order, surprise, attack and defending, wounds, death, survival rules for different atmospheres, oxygen, radiation, temperatures, all the fun stuff you'll experience in the horrors of space and alien planets. Medical care, how do you heal or recover? Here's just a whole nother section dedicated to examples of play. Players can hire contractors, essentially hirelings, like in D&D. They're different contractors you can get, what they can do, their stats, if you're using them in the game with you. And here is an example of the character sheet at the back. On the back, it gives you a great overview of the different important elements of running and playing the game. Okay, next we have the Warden's Operation Manual. So preparing for your first session. So they walk through that. So what do you need to do? How do you need to get organized? They give you an example of a notes that you could figure out, take it out. Talks about choosing a starting scenario. So where do you want them to begin the campaign or the adventure? And what are they doing? Responding to a distress signal, things like that. Here's the 5 acts of the horror that we alluded to on that front end page. Transgression. So it kind of awakens. Omens, we start to see signs of it. The horror manifests, they try to banish it, and then it relents for now. So as I alluded to earlier, there's the survive, solve, and save. So it kind of breaks those down. How do you survive the nightmare? And it talks through that. I love this graphic. Tactical considerations. So different elements that the players might face in a combat or could use to their advantage. Here's the solve aspect. So what is the mystery that they're trying to solve? And then there's questions, puzzles, and answers. And then here, it talks you through that. How do you create the puzzle? What are the most common questions, puzzle components that you can add into your adventure, and then creating compelling answers. Here's the save component. So who are the useful characters, allies, and enemies? How do the players interact with them? How can they save them from the scenario? Then it goes into how to draw a map with lots of different steps there. And then it talks about running your first session. So what do you need to bring? Character creation. Explain what the game is. Show them how the dice work. Teaching stress and panic. It walks you through step by step. It's super easy to read, understand, and learn. Sean and the writers did a great job there. Talks about safety instructions, and this is a horror game, so how do we make it safe for everybody, or not take it too far where people aren't comfortable with. How the game works, you should be impartial, how you take your notes. Talks you through how to adjudicate different steps in your game. Again, incredibly useful detail describing the situation. You set the stakes in a horror game, right? Talks about principles of agency. How do the players make their choices? How do they have the information to make meaningful choices? What are the impacts of those? Very similar to Chris McDowell's ICI framework. Resolving the action. When should you roll dice? When not to roll dice? How do you make house rules? How do you make rulings? Here's the great example about hiding. There's no stealth stat in the game, but obviously in a horror game, hiding is going to be very important. So how do you do that? You need to find good hiding spots and talk that through, and then that'll help adjudicate what makes sense. And they give a good example of that right there. How to build out your campaign. Different campaign frames. So they could be something like explorers, or maybe they're hyperspace raiders, and then creating a starting area for your campaign. How to create factions. How much should the jobs pay the players? Customizing your campaign, maintaining your campaign, and then mixing it up. So here's the different kind of horror genres and subgenres. How can you mix them up or use them at different times in your campaign? Very cool. And then at the back, we have more nice tables around planets and factions and settlements. And then terms of use on the back. So super in depth for a tiny little booklet, but full of useful information for a warden to run Mothership. Fantastic book. This is the Shipbreaker's Toolkit. So this is really just a collection of different ships that the players could pre-purchase that you can talk. It talks a little bit about designing your own as well. You got deck plans, costs, fuel classes, weaponry, all that good stuff, how they can interstellar travel. Different types of ships can make different jumps. You can essentially have a character sheet for the ship and kind of lay out its deck plan and upgrades and weaponry and all that. So it walks through all of that, stat checks for the ship, its class, modifying it, and then it goes into the different ships. So we have lots of great artwork here and great detail. Freighter ship, patrol craft, salvage cutter, corvette, jump liner, troop ship, exploration vessel, upgrades for your ship, weapons and class 0 vessels. So these are like lander skiffs or lander pods, drop ships, things like that. Space travel, so how to travel through space. Rules for detection and range, hailing and distress signals, ship-to-ship combat rules. They use something called mega damage. Example of play, so example of a ship combat. How to repair your ship. Maintenance issues, major repairs, who's paying the bills, different examples on that, and then the character sheet for the ship in the back. And then a quick overview of all the specs on the back. Very cool. Lastly, we have the Unconfirmed Contacts Report. This is essentially your monster manual for Mothership. Talks about how to use the book. So the monster stats are a little different than player stats. So there is a combat skill. So that's what they need to roll under to successfully attack. Damage is there. Instinct is essentially their skill check for anything they're going to try to do. Whereas the players may have different skills. Instinct is kind of the catch-all for them. Instinct is also their saving throw. So if they have to make a save based on something the players do, they will roll their instinct check. Armor points, so that is how much damage they can take before they actually take damage to themselves and start taking wounds. And then maximum number of wounds and health is right there. Not all of the monsters in here have stats. Some of them like can't be killed or don't really do damage. Like angels have 100 combat. They need to make a sanity save or fall to their knees weeping. There's no health or armor or wounds listed here. They just can't beat that. So a little bit different than thinking from like a D&D mindset where if you have a creature in combat, it can probably be killed. In a horror game, that's not necessarily the case. Maybe not my favorite, but it is what it is. You can run only monsters that have wounds and health that can be killed. It's totally up to you. So it just walks through some of these different ones. A lot of the artwork is great. As you'd expect, horror can take all sorts of different forms. So you can have like predator type monsters. You can have computer viruses, deadly spores or parasites, angels, demons, all sorts of stuff. Then you have more natural villains like raiders or corporate thugs, things like that, who are humanoid, but are still going to be useful in your campaign if your players end up fighting with them. Lots of interesting kind of detail. There's no real structure to the unconfirmed contact reports, so lots of kind of lore around the different things that they might be talking about, maybe some rules for the different monsters that the players might encounter, but yeah, kind of free form. To be honest, the unconfirmed contacts report is probably the biggest miss for me, but not necessarily because of what they've done here. Just they can't really capture all the horror that you might want to put into your game. These serve as kind of good inspiration, but if you have some sort of idea for a horror story that you'd like to tell, the creature that you want might not even exist here. It might be some sort of manifestation of your own mind, and you'll just need to stat it up yourself. So this gives some good examples on what can be done, or maybe give some inspiration. But, you know, beyond maybe looking up raiders or corporate thugs, you know, it's up to you on how useful this is. To me, seems like the least useful of the 4 books. That is first edition Mothership RPG. I really love the layout in the books. I love the way they explain how to play the game in the Warden operation manual. This is gold. The player survival guide is really clear too. I love these 2 books. These are great reference tools for you to look at and use. Obviously, if you're running ship combat, you have a lot of great rules in there as well. Unconfirmed contact reports, as I talked about, is probably my least favorite, but still useful to have for quick monsters if you're trying to run a game quickly, or inspiration. So definitely worth checking out. The box is gorgeous. The game looks great. I'm very excited to play. This is a game where I will definitely lean more into the modules because I don't have as much experience running sci-fi or horror type games. So I'm definitely going to lean into experts and see how they do it first before I try to make any of my own. Mothership looks like it could be a great game for both campaigns, but also running a one-shot. So if you just want to run a bug hunt, you can play that with some characters, and you know, when you're done with that, maybe you can try out a different story. That is going to do it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it was interesting. Let me know down below. Do you want to see more Mothership content on the channel, or do you prefer just sticking to fantasy type D&D games, OSR? Let me know. Thanks for hopping aboard the Earthmote. I'll see you again soon.